What's going on, everyone? Another week has passed, which means another group of tournaments. And might I say, the meta is looking absolutely fantastic. And there is one list that I wanted to highlight today that took down one of the smaller tournaments lately that just is absolutely sweet. I wanted to go over. Not only that, but we also had a limited planetary qualifier, which I think is really sweet last week, that I just wanted to showcase the top 8 for those of you that are interested in limited. We had a bunch of leaders showcased, and not necessarily their list, but at least kind of some of the combinations that people are running to conquer the 128 player limited tournament, which is really sweet. That said, a big thank you to my patrons, and let's dive straight in with kind of a little bit of a meta update real quick, because to be honest, nothing has really shifted. We still have Quinlan and Boba data vaults really coming in and winning the majority of those tournaments. In terms of the top 8, yep, it's Quinlan red, Han blue, Boba green, Sabine green, followed up by Cad Bane and Kylo, and then you got some other lists as you go on. Literally nothing has really changed in the last week since we've gone over it, mainly because there hasn't really been all that many new additions. Instead, I wanted to focus really in on two things: the new list and the limited tournament. First off, the limited tournament here, this is a 128 player tournament. For those of you that don't know, this limited tournament is based on draft. So you're going to be sitting around a table, you got 8 players, you open up 3 packs, you take one of the cards in those packs and you pass the rest of the pack onwards. That's really the baseline for draft. And so you're going to see a huge amount of different leaders, and really the leaders don't matter as much in some scenarios as just the cards that you're able to draft. If you look at the top 8 here, there are some leaders in here that I would really not be expecting. Things like Cal Kestis, Ahsoka, even Kit Fisto to some degree, that aren't as nearly as strong as some of the other ones that I would suggest. But I do think that, again, some of these leaders just have some really high power level for them. Cal Kestis has that killer angle of being able to deploy so early on that if you do situate yourself, and in this case it's Red Force, so you do have things like Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi that you can pick up. If you do have some of those really nice aggressive events, even like Sorceress Blast, you or Trust Your Instincts is an option, and you can really get in some early damage, and then that little bit of exhaust can be the difference in just ending the game very quickly and preventing your opponent from really doing anything. One of the things that I've realized, especially with Legend of the Force, 20 HP base, you get 2 less HP than you normally would in previous limited formats, and it's actually very quick. It's a very quick format, and having an early to deploy leader in this format ends up being even more powerful, because you can get things like upgrades, like Ascension Cable, which most of you don't even know about, or even some of the villainy upgrades that you could play in heroism decks that are totally reasonable. And if you power up your Cal Kestis with some of those upgrades, it's really not able to be interacted with. There's not really a whole lot of ways to deal with the powered up leaders in the set, besides just putting up your own big units or leaders. And so having an early deploy like Cal Kestis can matter. Same thing applies to Ahsoka, right? Getting Sentinels down, using the Force to prevent your death, and then having a 5/6 deploy leader that just gets in for some damage can also do some good work. Kit Fisto, the ability, if you do happen to have a lot of Jedi, can really do some amazing work in limited games. Getting 2 damage when you choose for 1 resource is absolutely fantastic. And we also have Grand Inquisitor, which honestly is another one that I think is a little bit underrated, at least for limited. Getting the -2/-0, especially if you get I think it's the Inquisitor's lightsaber. It's a cunning villainy 2-cost lightsaber that gives your opponent's minus attack when you attack as a Force unit. It works amazing with Grand Inquisitor, because you can basically shrink someone's attack down to 0 and just use them as every single turn you kill off a unit. And that can be really tough to deal with. The other 3 leaders on this list are much more expected, and are my top 3 leaders for Legend of the Force Limited. We have Snoke and Talzin number 1 and number 2, and Obi-Wan also up there. These 3 leaders are very close in terms of how powerful they are. Obi-Wan, nice and early deploy, along with Talzin with 5 resource deploy, and really effective. It's super easy to gain the Force. As I played more and more drafts, my opinion has shifted on that from my earlier ones, yeah, it is just super easy to gain the Force, and really you want a way to spend it. And with Talzin and Obi-Wan, you get that guaranteed way to spend your Force every single turn, no matter what. There's a lot of value trades. Even if it's preventing just 1 damage from Talzin, you can use it. Obi-Wan, of course, even better. You get the experience token. Talzin's flip is a little bit better than Obi-Wan's because you're going to have experience tokens on most of your units anyways with Obi-Wan. So he's just kind of a 3-6, whereas Talzin's a 3-7 that starts to shrink down units. It's going to be really oppressive. And then Snoke just makes every single play that you can add to your deck that much better. Having the choice to play all your villainy units and then give them extra power to utilize that extra resource that you have. Absolutely fantastic. I am not surprised at all that Snoke Blue and Mother Talzin Red are number 1, number 2. Mother Talzin Red, when I was playing Limited, I played a couple limited games in the Galactic Championship in paper with all of you, and Talzin Red was the one that I won the games with the most. I played like 4 or 5 draft rounds because I love drafts so much. And Talzin Red was by far the strongest of the variants that I have found. Obi-Wan Yellow was a really solid one up there as well. And of course, Snoke Blue. Because the nice thing about Snoke Blue is that you can get access to things like Shatterpoint or Cheer It. And if you do get some of those stalling mechanisms to where you can get to the Snoke deploy and start really leveraging those experience tokens, yeah, the game kind of ends. So it was really awesome to see just a top 8 of a limited tournament. I think it was worth kind of going over. And for those of you that are also interested in Limited, this is now a competitive event, right? This is going to give you points towards those competitive options and getting you placed in some of the tournaments going forward. So Limited is now something that people are actually focused on, whereas before it was like kind of just a hobbyist gameplay, and now people are actually participating in competitive limited tournaments, which is really, really awesome to see. And if I had my choice, this is what I would want to go to above all. But as I said, there was another list here that really did some work, and it is the title of this video, which is Wedge Blue, and more specifically, Wedge Security Complex. Now, this is a very small planetary qualifier, of course. It's nothing too crazy, but it was still competing with the likes of, Talzin Red, Yoda Red, Vader Yellow, Sabine ECL, Kira ECL. These are not jank decks by any means. These are meta options. Palpatine Blue, a little bit less so, but still a decently competitive option. And Wedge Security Complex actually taking it down is so awesome to see. It is one of my favorite leaders. Just it's one of those things where it's one of my favorite leaders, but it's also one of the most depressing leaders to play. Because if you do get all those pilots out, you dump your hand really quickly, they deal with it. It is kind of sad. But if we dive in the list here, this is what we've got to go on. And I can even pull up the deck image here so you guys can check it out. But this is really, really awesome. It's just a bunch of pilots, and you get to leverage all of the amazing pilots from set 4 and some of the amazing units. There really isn't any. In fact, I don't think there is a single set 5 edition in this entire pool. Even in the sideboard, there's like no new edition, right? I don't see any new edition whatsoever. And it's just utilizing kind of the Rebel synergies. You do get Fleet Lieutenant, you do get Rebel Assault, but then you also get to pair that with all of the various early space units that you get: A-Wing, Arc 170, Alliance X-Wing, put a pilot on them, and then go to town. There really isn't anything too crazy with this. I do think there's a couple of really, really cool additions of this list that really do work well. As an example, the Red Squadron X-Wing is an amazing one just to be able to draw cards. The Perimeter ATRT gives you a Sentinel that you can go ahead and power up with a pilot, and then giving it a shield token can completely block the ground arena. Things like Paige and Trace can really be a nice situation where you can make a unit really big and then heal them up, or just keep growing it and putting on pressure. Like Paige is essentially +2/+2, but really it's piloting and you get kind of +3/+2, and then +4/+2. You just kind of keep powering up that unit, which is really, really nice. And then some kind of interesting additions like Covert Strength and Legal Authority. Covert Strength works really with Paige or X-Wing, just getting you the ability to draw a card and then healing yourself up. And then, of course, the, just absolutely amazing Legal Authority here. It has actually been a really impressive card. It's just a one of, but it is worth highlighting because when you do get a Legal Authority, you can attach to any unit and you can just yoink one of their ground units, and it can prevent them from, gathering the force or, just giving a little bit of a tempo option. Of course, that kind of game plan works really poorly against decks with a lot of removal, but if we jump back into the top 8 and we look, Yoda Red, that can have things like Fella Dragon, Force Throw, so that's pretty removal heavy. Talzin's gonna have to rely on Force Throw, Force Lightning. Palpatine Blue, Fell the Dragon. So yeah, that could be a little bit risky. But things like Vader Yellow, Sabine ECL, those ones can be a little bit more open. Honestly, up against this field, I'm really surprised to see like a Security Complex Wedge actually do work. Security Complex, it does actually prevent a lot of the removal options from Talzin and Yoda. So I think that's where a lot of the benefit is. Like, Power of the Dark Side still works, absolutely. But if you don't have Power of the Dark Side, you're relying on Force Throws, or you're relying on Force Lightnings. Security Complex can be a huge stopper in those game plans. So I think that's kind of where it came in, and why they decided to go with Security Complex over, whatever else you wanted to run, Colossus or just a 30 HP base. It is really cool to see, and I absolutely love some of the random things people come up with. You even have the random one of Cunning Han Solo that you can pilot in for 4 to get that last bit of damage in. There is just so many things that I love about lists like this. And what's also cool about it is, yes, the meta is established in set 5 at this point, and whoops, I'm cycling through everything too fast, but I meant to go to the meta back to the meta. Yes, the meta is established, but all these random lists, these Admiral Akbar data vaults, or Poe Dameron data vaults, or the double red Sabine, the lists that are kind of not typical, still have a chance. They can still pull out a win. And remember, these tournaments that are highlighted here require at least planetary qualifiers that over 32 players. So these aren't like really tiny tournaments or anything like that. They are smaller, of course, but we're still getting to see random lists like this one pop up and do some good work. So I think that's pretty sweet to see. And yes, there are some favorites, but overall, the meta is pretty open in terms of you can bring a lot and do some good work. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. This was a lot of fun to take a look at, and of course, kind of dive into the limited side of things as well. It's one of my passions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.